My name is Lincoln Teo. I'm the Managing Director of 𝘊𝘺𝘺𝘺𝘺. 𝘊𝘺𝘺𝘺𝘺 is an award-winning platform at the COP28 in Dubai last year. As a platform, as a service provider, we are looking to assist carbon players with a multitude of services and also an ecosystem that could promote greater transparency and also efficiency in the market trading. For iWise, we are an organization that has been involved with a couple of intergovernmental projects, amongst them the UN SCAP project, which we are advising the Central Bank of Maldives, which is the Maldives Monetary Authority, in their development of the Fintech regulatory sandbox, as well as the central bank digital currency. Well, it's a good question, because if you do a throwback of about maybe 5 years ago, a lot of organizations or even governments will come and tell you that ESG is something that is nice to have. Protecting the climate against climate changes would be something that would be perhaps second or the third priority on the corporate agenda after making money. But certainly, I think if you look at the overall evolution of things, and sadly, perhaps with the changes that we are seeing in the climate problems, one that comes to mind will be what has just happened in Valencia in Spain. That brings to mind about the urgency of the problem that we are facing here. And I think in the past, if you ask me, there is a lot of sovereign or governmental pressures that you would expect to push some of the corporations or the man in the street. But I think we have progressed quite a bit from where we were then, to the point that some of the governments are, of course, waking up to that. And the corporations, in many cases, are not even waiting for the push from the government itself. But of course, in this whole current space, it is still very much at the beginning paths. We are seeing a lot of changes in terms of the behavior. But the changes in the behavior often will have to be accompanied by a lot of actions, as well as a lot of legislations, and perhaps I would say some of the market conditions and the market apparatus have to come into play to make the overall equation in favor of the corporations or the governments who are participating in that. And therefore, at 𝘊𝘺𝘺𝘺𝘺, we are very, very cognizant of these whole challenges itself. For us, while as a platform as a service, we think that it is so important to promote the transparency of the different carbon projects and the carbon trades that goes through on a global basis. Similarly, the collection of data is ever so important, because you are looking at the collection of all this data to ensure there is a certain amount of monitoring, of reporting, as well as verification as well, so that you could make the whole ecosystem, so to speak, work according to the direction that we are looking at, which is pretty much getting to a positive impact for climate change. I think definitely, first and foremost, from a digital and a fintech perspective, it is not now, but over the last couple of years, as we would probably acknowledge, they have been driving changes, innovation, and of course, very positive impact in terms of the whole realm of finance, as well as commerce and many other things. So likewise, when we come to this part of the carbon trade, for 𝘊𝘺𝘺𝘺𝘺, we are always on the lookout for good fintech partners who can fit into our ecosystem. And perhaps I think for M-DAQ, it strikes us as a very important possible partner, because of the way that M-DAQ is also facilitating global trade. And you may be wondering about, well, is carbon credits a global trade yet? Perhaps not, because there are still a few steps towards achieving that status of a tradable commodity. It is also some steps away from perhaps having a general acceptance and standards in terms of what a tradable commodity should look like. But bear in mind, while some of these things are work in progress, needless to say, fintech in terms of its ability to galvanize markets, provide the bridge of finance and payments between 2 points is something that we think is so important in our 013 ecosystem itself as we try to build it into a global community. Well, I think we just came out of perhaps a very monumental event last night, and it happened in so many of my conversations over the last 24 hours. Needless to say, the United States, which is a leading country, or the giant in the room itself, has a new leader. And many people are wondering, the new president, Donald Trump, what will his position be and how would he be driving his country's direction in terms of climate change, and particularly in relation to what I call the Paris Agreement. And the Paris Agreement is important in the sense that there's a lot of voluntary participation in terms of arriving at net zero. And that is something which a number of countries have signed up. Of course, some people are fearing whether will there be any retracement in terms of some countries in terms of that objectives, especially when it comes to Article 6.2, where countries voluntarily trade carbon credits. It is so important for that consistent sovereign participation to happen throughout. But again, I go back to what I said earlier on, right? If we were to wait just for the sovereign and the governmental level to promote the push and the direction, then we could be back to square one. Whilst I do not want to, again, perhaps speculate on what Mr. Donald Trump will do, I think we are in a situation where I think a lot of countries, a lot of corporations, a lot of individuals have already taken on the momentum by themselves to do something for the environment and to make the necessary corrective or executive decisions to ensure that they are able to make the world a much better place. And more importantly is that at this point, perhaps we should give Mr. Donald Trump a chance to see what he will say before trying to say that the next few years may be doom and gloom for climate change. Well, personally, for 013 itself, as you have heard, we are an ecosystem that trying to make changes in the carbon market space, in the decarbonization. We strongly promote the expansion of trade of carbon credits, especially high integrity carbon credits with the sufficient data and validation. This is something that we will work hand in hand with the Enterprise Singapore, which is also trying to make Singapore a carbon trading hub. Now, this is, of course, a wish from a personal and perhaps at the company level for 013. But I think for the world larger at heart itself, this has huge implications for the globe. Because what we are seeing is that the whole Article 6.2 is going to perpetuate trade of carbon credits between the developed nations and the global south. And unfortunately, the developed nations are perhaps one of the greatest emitters, as you know, in Singapore. We use a lot of air conditioning for the obvious reasons because of our climate. But that has also meant that we need to look for offsets elsewhere. And I'm really delighted that the Singapore government has increased its activity in terms of 6.2 starting with Papua New Guinea as well as Ghana in the implementation agreement, where projects will yield carbon credits. And I see the eventual trade of these carbon credits to be a way for the less developed countries and the global south to obtain revenue and also helping the environment as well. And of course, helping developed countries like Singapore to reach its commitments in terms of reaching a net zero. Ultimately, my hope is that this would actually narrow the income gap and make the world a much better place.